but I think we probably can get pretty much started for our meeting. Welcome everybody to the general Pi meeting or Zoom meeting. We're glad that everybody could Zoom into this. So this is going to be, our speaker will be Zooming in anyway, so it would not be fortuitous if we had had a live meeting, but we're still trying to plan some live meeting and hopefully have some live people there. The last time we gave a live meeting, we had only the people putting together the meeting at the meeting. So next time we encourage people to do a live attendance. It is much more convenient doing the Zoom meetings. It certainly is the way things are most easily done now. As long as
Roy, maybe shall I just talk very briefly about possible plans for the November meeting along those lines?
Yes.
Yeah. So Larry Kirschberg will be joining our meeting a little bit later, and before we turn the meeting over to Gary, hopefully will give us an update. We have a new Pi scholarship awardee, so that'll be fun to listen to. But what Larry, living now in upstate New York, is still trying to do for us is to have a live meeting in November at George Mason. And there are two things that are in the pot now about that, and we haven't sort of settled which of them. One is to see if we can go back to Jim McLean's studio. We had a very successful meeting back in, see, this is now doing the COVID time. It was 2019, November of 2019. And Dale made a fabulous meeting video about that. Maybe that's one that I'll try to choose first from all the compilations that I have of Dale's great videos to put up on the YouTube page. Anyway, so that's one possibility. And the other is Larry just getting us a room where, again, we would try to do a hybrid meeting that would be fun for people who actually came. And probably one of the Mason-based scholarship recipients from last year, we'd be able to coax to come to that live meeting, but also to do it via Zoom for the people who are remote, since that seems to be the path that we're headed on. So we're going to try to have George Mason based in one way or another, the November meeting, and more will be coming on about that in your Pi email. Thanks, Roy.
Okay. Yes. About the only announcement I have of the latest things happening. Now the rumors are no longer rumors. The iOS for the pad will be released, and except I'm not sure what Ventura's status is, but on Monday. So that update will be coming. And Apple recently did announce 2 new iPads. One, Aaron can cover his ears, but I'm very disappointed in the iPad Pro. I have one of the first models, and I was very set to get an iPad Pro update since I have the first generation of it. But then I heard the specs on it and read the specs, and it was very strange. It's like not an updated iPad Pro in many respects, because it still uses the iPad Pencil 1, and you have to get a special dongle because the power charger is that's the way you used to charge the iPad Pencil 1, is by plugging it into the iPad or with a little dongle that you plugged into the normal charger. Well, for some reason they kept that technology in the new iPad Pro, which is sort of like, I don't know, sort of like coming out with a new model car that's still based on a Model T, but I don't know. So that's my soapbox comment on the new iPad Pro. And I think there was some other deterring factor that didn't make it as pro-ish as I expected.
Roy,
Roy,
I think you're referring to the 10th gen iPad, not the iPad Pro.
Oh,
Right. Yes,
oh, really?
correct.
Okay. I guess I misread the announcement I read then. Well, good.
yeah, Roy, this look for the quote M2 thing. Even
That's-
though the whole thing about the silicon thing is, I don't understand, because this all started with the mobile devices, the chips. And now
Right.
that they've branded it in the Mac, now they're carrying the brand back to the devices that the chips were initially made for. But anyway,
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess, okay, whatever model, I'm surprised they're still supporting the pencil one, whatever's coming out. I thought it was an M2. I'll have to find out what that article I read was, because I guess I'm passing bad rumors. So on that note, I'm going to pass things over to Jonathan to lead into today's meeting.
well, sure. So one thing I'd like to do is a reaction thing for everyone. So what I want to know under reactions, green is yes, and the check green is X, and the X is no. So how many people are familiar with MacMost? Oh, so I'm getting a chorus of green with a sprinkling of reds. And what I like about this is that for the people who are familiar with MacMost, this is an amazing treat to have Gary actually with us presenting. For the people who aren't familiar with it, this will be a new delight for you. Gary has been doing these MacMost videos for a long time, and on his MacMost.com website, you can scroll down for several years and look at all of the stuff he's been doing. A relatively new undertaking is that on the side, as if, you know, this guy is more than mortal, on the side, he has become a game developer. So, you know, with the regular pattern of videos that he produces, how he has time to even think or do anything else, I don't know. But now he's got a whole page of different apps. And the last thing that some of the people who follow him closely really praise is that he apparently also does regular courses. I don't know whether what the pay arrangement is for Gary's MacMost courses, and whether, if there is, whether he'd be willing to offer that to a Pi member out of this meeting. But before we let him go, we'll definitely ask him about that.
Jonathan,
Yes, Bruce?
I was just going to say, you asked who is familiar with Gary at MacMost or with MacMost, but maybe you should ask who has actually watched one or more of his videos, either on YouTube or on his website or wherever. I'm not sure it would be exactly the same result, although pretty close maybe.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty close. Considering how ubiquitous his videos are.
John,
I'm
I'm sorry. I got in a little late. What was the question that other people were responding to?
Were they familiar with MacMost.com?
Oh,
That was just the question. If you saw all of the green yeses, Diana. What I was going to suggest is that everybody hit the reactions again, and then that will take down the yeses and nos?
Oh, one thing you could ask, Jonathan, is how many learned of Gary or MacMost through the Washington apple pie versus on their own?
Well, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, how many people did not know about Gary Rosenzweig nor about his website, macmost.com, until they heard about it through this club? How many, let's see, how are we going to ask this? How many people knew about Gary or his website prior to the club beginning to promote it? If you heard about it through the club, say no. If you heard about it prior to that, say yes.
What if you don't remember?
Well, then I guess you have to just not vote. If you're not sure, then just don't vote. But,
Yeah, there's a certain imprecision in this, but it's fun
yeah,
anyway.
this is by no means scientific, but it looks like it's kind of evenly split. Some people found out through the club, others on their own. So that's an interesting result. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that's nice about our Pi members is that we have so many Pi members who have different interests. And so we learn about someone, and then it turns out that some Pi members have been really kind of hot on this person for a long time. And it's a good thing and a nice thing for us to have Pi members who have that diverse interests. So thanks, Bruce.
Don't mention it.
Bruce, would you carry on just for a minute? One thing I want to do is go back to a couple of places where I'm sharing the meeting and saying that it's live on YouTube now.
Sure. So since I've got the floor, anybody have any burning, pressing Mac issues or problems with their Apple mobile devices or their Macs that they would like to ask the group?
When does the M2 come to the Mac?
I don't know the answer, but somebody might. Okay, and I think James Landsberg had his hand up. James, you were muted. Go ahead with your question.
Call me Jim.
Jim.
Is it possible for somebody to send a text message to your iPhone and with a spoof telephone number? In other words, I got a call, and I was in a doctor's office and I got a call and they said they were from my credit union calling me. I couldn't talk, there were a bunch of people around me. And so she said she'd call me back. And she didn't call me back after the doctor's meeting. And I looked at the number, that you can bring up on the text message. And it was a legitimate number for credit union. But when I call the credit union, their answering machine says, "We will never call you." So I began to wonder, could that have been a spoof message? And she never did call back. Is it possible to do that and have a number that's a spoof, that's a real number, but it's not? If you call it back, you won't be actually talking to that number?
Well, I don't have 100% authoritative answer for you, Jim, but I believe the answer is yes, it can be spoofed. However, I'm not 100% sure of that. I get, unfortunately, more spoof text messages than I would like to, but I have my messages app set up so that people can text me not only by my cell phone number, but also by my email address. And
Well,
so,
Bruce, I made a mistake there. It wasn't the text, it was, I looked at the list of calls on my iPhone.
oh, okay, so it
That's
was a
what I was
phone.
looking at, and you can press the little button and you get the call.
Okay, so it was a phone call, not a text message.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, yes, they could certainly spoof caller ID, just like on a landline call. Absolutely. From the originating end, the caller end, yeah, it's the same for them. They don't even necessarily know with certainty whether they're calling a landline or a cell phone. You can sometimes make an educated guess based on not the area code, but the prefix. And if you're interested, I'll explain how that works. But but that's definitely not 100% reliable. It's only a guess. So there's probably no way for them to know if that's your question, Jim.
Well, the question is whether if I call back to the number that well, let's see, she said she would call me, so it could have been a spoof call.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I guess you're always safe calling the office, but the main number from your own records or their website, that's safe, but it's possible that whoever you get when you make that call won't know anything about it. And that could be
When I called the
legitimate
credit
because
union, they knew nothing about any call to me.
if they know nothing about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that the first call was spoofed. It just means that the person who answers the main number doesn't necessarily know about a call somebody else made from their organization. So it's really hard to draw a definite conclusion from that. But nonetheless, I'd suggest that's what you do and leave a
That's what I
word,
did.
leave a message and say, okay, I'm free now. If somebody's trying to reach me, have them call back now, or something along those lines.
Well, that's in effect what I did, and they couldn't find any record anybody had called me.
Right. I think that's you probably did the right thing under the circumstances.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Jonathan.
Yeah, what I was going to quickly add to that, Jim, is that with spoof numbers, it's really unlikely that a spoof number would be an actual number. Spoofing uses a different number, and it would have to be. Sorry, Roy, I have to go attend to something quickly. I'll be right back.
Right. When they spoof, they pick a number which is usually completely different from their actual number they're calling on. So I don't know. I think in your case, it was probably a legitimate call, but it never hurts to be cautious. I think being cautious in that situation was the right thing to do. Call the main office number, from your records or off their website, not from the number that called you. And if it's important enough, eventually it'll get to the person there that called you the first time, and they'll call you back.
Yeah. But I think you have to be really, really careful nowadays. Stuff that seems like it might be legitimate can look legitimate, and it isn't. I mean, but it's framed in some way that looks like it could easily be a legitimate call or email.
Yeah, right.
Just really careful.
The other thing you might have done, Jim, is if they don't give you their name on the first call, the questionable one, ask their name, and they should at least give you their first name and make a note of it, write it down, because
I did that, but I didn't note it down. So when I called it, I couldn't remember what she told me.
I know. So that's it's hard to. I have the same problem. Thinking on my feet doesn't always work well for me.
Right, I do too.
Take a screenshot if you can. Capture the screen.
It sounds to me like somebody may have deliberately used a real number as a spoof, though they were calling from another number.
Well, that's what would have had to have happened, because the number that my iPhone recorded was the real number. Although it had a plus, it had it came in the form of a plus sign and 1, and then the real number. So I don't know if that +1 is a part of a spoof or in some fashion.
Sometimes that means it's coming from overseas. Sometimes, I don't know if that's 100%, but because to dial the US, the country code for the US is 1 or +1. And sometimes that gets shown in the caller ID when you get a legitimate call from overseas. So anyway, looks like Ginger has her hand up. You have something to add, Ginger?
Yeah, I got up this morning and I have a text saying that my package is somewhere and they need my address and information in order to send it to me from USPS. So I'm assuming this is a spoof.
It sounds like it.
It's a common.
The scam.
Anyway, just thought I'd remind everybody. Yeah, it's right out there.
Yeah, if you're not expecting anything, and you can always monitor it another way, but that's a common spam.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of that happening, a lot of strange messages coming and strange emails, but it's just getting worse. So,
Well, I told
Yeah,
the group,
I think the most annoying things are spam text messages, because the way the iMessages work is you have to go through a couple of steps to delete them, and you can block it, but it doesn't help for all the reasons that we've talked about.
It doesn't help much.
Somehow the cellular providers have to do
Right.
something about this.
I usually block calls that I know are bogus, just on general principles, because it's so easy to do. But at the same time, it does almost no good because it's never the same number twice in most cases. So blocking doesn't really help much, at least on my cell phone. Now on our home phone, we used to get repeat calls from the same bad number, and I have blocked those. And that does help because I see in the call log where they've attempted to call, and I know the phone never rang, and that means that, you know, my home phone wired a regular phone service blocked it, and it never even rang my phone, which is what I wanted to happen. So that's a good thing. But on my cell phone, for some reason, they never seem to get, never seem to use same number twice. So I don't know. The other thing is, when you block on your cell phone, do you even get any kind of notification that somebody tried to call? I think maybe that's the reason I don't hear, because there's nothing, no log to look at.
Well, they can go to voicemail, I think, Bruce. And the other thing is, because I have elected the setting to block all calls who aren't in my address book. But apparently the text messages can still come, notwithstanding that. Oh,
yes. Well,
everybody, can I just interrupt for a second, Bruce? Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Gary is in the house.
yes.
Sorry, Bruce, please continue.
I think we're pretty well done with this topic, but yeah, I don't know. If you block it, it says it's supposed to block, like say you block a text message that came in on a 10-digit phone number that you know is bogus, or that you don't know the number at all. Can they then call that number on a voice call? Well, according to what the Apple settings say, when you block something, it says you won't get text, emails, or voice calls and so on from the number once it's blocked.
Right, but that's what the problem with spoofing, Bruce. That's the whole point. It doesn't help to block a number.
Right,
because
right.
Spoofing just
And those
That's
people
right.
doing
That's
the
right.
spoofing.
That's what I just said. It doesn't really help much. Because
It doesn't
they
help.
keep changing
Really
their-
doesn't help at all because usually they'll use one number to send out one package to millions of people and they switch to another number.
Right, so,
And they'll change the spoofing numbers. It's just a series of random numbers.
Right.
And random calls to everybody in their billion phone directory, their billions of links and things like that. So it's a nonstop thing unless somebody stops it before it gets to you.
right, and so blocking, I won't say it doesn't help at all, but it doesn't help very much.
It only blocks if it's a 9-year-old that doesn't know what he's doing with his computer and he's sending it from his home phone. So it doesn't help much because that number will just change the next round of messages. So I used to have a blocked list and it just had so many numbers on it. And then I released it and I never get numbers, called back from those. So it's just a frustrating thing that happens. If you've noticed on the iPhone, on the recent update, when you delete a message now, it asks you whether you want to report it as junk. So they added an extra step to when you delete it. Do you want to report it as junk? I found that's kind of getting annoying with messages that I'm deleting that are legitimate, but it is a nice thing because it just gets reported as junk more quickly.
Right, and whether reporting it even does much good is questionable too.
Right, yes.
At this point, Larry Kirschberg has joined the meeting. Good morning, Larry. Thanks for attending. Would you like to talk about our newest PI scholarship recipient?
Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a coffee shop, so sipping my cappuccino. So I'm happy to see so many of you on the screen here. I think I'll keep my hand until the sun coming in. So our latest recipient is named Rosie Sultana, and I can read you what the nominating professor said about her, and that is that she's an excellent student. She's a great undergraduate teaching assistant. Now, these people apply to become undergraduate teaching assistants, but they don't actually get paid. So they're doing it on their own time and because they love teaching, which is really good. And she's heavily involved in the Honors College Admissions Committee. And she's also a Mason ambassador. And she's a member of what they call the Breakthrough Technology Group. So they're looking at ways to use technology in education, which I think is really cool. And she's also a member of the Bachelor's and Accelerated Master's program. So that's what we know about her. And then I looked on Facebook to try to find her, but I couldn't find her. There's so many Rosie Sultanas that I couldn't tell which is which. So, but I did find a post by George Mason University honoring her, and I sent a picture to both Roy and Jonathan. So if you can put that picture up, I'd appreciate it. And she looks like a very wholesome person. If I go to the Facebook post, let me see if I can do that. Here's what they say about her. Congratulations, she got an award as the Honors College Outstanding Achievement Award in Computer Science. Congratulations to Rosie Sultana, Honors College Outstanding Achievement Award recipient. This was when she was, this was in 2001, in April 27th, 2001. So she was a sophomore at the time, major in minor in computer science. So what has Rosie been recognized for? So here is what the statement says. Rosie is the director of the Honors College recruitment team. Throughout her time at Mason, Rosie has shown a commitment to recruiting first-generation students like herself. In this role, she works with the admissions department to plan for fall and spring previews, admission events panels, meets with prospective families and students each week, and organizes the board meetings in addition. Rosie is a Mason ambassador, or in addition, Rosie is a Mason ambassador. What's next for Rosie? Rosie plans to work in the computer science field in order to make technological contributions that can help create broader accessibility for underrepresented and disabled communities. So I think Rosie is Hispanic. I'm not sure, but it looks like she would be. And she's doing some great work on behalf of the university, as well as first-time college students and families. And I know that because I was the first college student in my family, and it made a difference in my life and my career. And I think it's important to sponsor people like Rosie to help make a difference in education. So I'm really happy about her choice as the ThePi scholarship recipient. Any questions, any comments?
Yeah, Larry, I just shared the screen to the page that you sent in Facebook messaging. So
Right.
this was her honors college thing.
Oh, and I see there are some comments as well, which is good. So I think we have a good scholarship recipient this year. I'm very happy about this.
And thanks, Larry, for all the work you've been doing on this and for introducing us to the newest scholarship recipient.
My pleasure.
Roy, anything else you'd like to say before we bring Gary into the picture?
No, I think not. I'm looking forward to listening to Gary right away. So let's jump right over there.
Okay, so let me welcome Gary Rosenzweig to Washington Apple Pie. Gary, the Pi has been helping Apple members since 1978. And when people ask us, well, if you had 6,000 members then and now you have 250 members, what happened? And I tell them that was before the internet. Anyway, we are just delighted that you're here today. And I'll make you a co-host so you can share your content. And we will turn the meeting over to you, Gary.
Hey, hi. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well this morning. So I'm here to talk about what's new in macOS Ventura. And boy, you guys timed your meeting perfectly, didn't you? So Ventura comes out on Monday. So great timing. This is, I guess, a preview for what you can download on Monday when you update your Macs. Ventura is pretty exciting. It's got some really cool new features. It's a mostly additive new version of macOS, meaning that a lot of the current stuff is the same, but there's new stuff added to it. So that's pretty cool. And most of the stuff added to it is optional, things you can use, you don't necessarily need to use. A lot of features also that people have been asking for years. So let me go and share my screen here. All right. Now you should see my MacBook Pro that is running macOS Ventura, the last beta version of it, since Monday's version will be the full version for everybody. Everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so this is Ventura. You can tell because of the yellow background as opposed to the purplish background of macOS Monterey. And just to get right to the new features, one of the most talked about new features, and certainly I think one of the most visible new features, is a whole new way to multitask. And multitasking, previously we had lots of different ways to do it. One is just using Windows. You've got, here's Notes, so I want to switch to Mail, I can just bring Mail to the front. Here's the Safari window, I can bring that to the front. Here's Photos. You can multitask just using Windows. You also have Mission Control, where you could have multiple desktops. Now I've got 2 desktops here, and I could switch between them. And you can also do things like use the app switcher, and switch to the app that you want really easily. Well, a new way to do it that's added to those, because all of those still work just as they did before, is called Stage Manager. And you turn Stage Manager on like this. You go to Control Center here, and there's a button for Stage Manager. So you can see all these windows here, all cluttered onto one desktop. Here's what happens when I turn on Stage Manager. Everything goes away except the current window I'm looking at, which in this case is Reminders. The other windows are pushed to the left side here, and they're in these little groups called App Sets. And if I want to switch to one, like I want to switch to Notes, I click on Notes there, and you can see how Reminders goes into the slot there, and Notes comes right here. And then I've got the Notes window, and I could resize it and do what I want, switch back to Reminders. I could switch to the Mail app right there, and you can just easily get around in these different app sets. In this case, Safari actually has 3 windows here. So when I switch to it, you can see I've got 3 Safari windows. And you can notice that here when I put it back on the left, you can see these 3 little windows here. And there's actually more than 4 app sets here. These are just the 4 most recently accessed ones. You could still use all of the old ways to switch. So for instance, if I wanted to switch to another app, I could do Command Tab for the app switcher, and I could see that, for instance, Text Edit is there. It's just there's no room for it here on the left. So I switched to Text Edit, and you can see Text Edit jumps in here, and the window I was using goes back to the left, and I could now switch back and forth like that. So you can still do app switching. You don't have to use these little windows here on the left to switch. You could also just use general, regular ways that you switch, like Spotlight, for instance. So I can do Spotlight, I can do Notes, and it'll just switch to Notes like that. As a matter of fact, if you minimize a window, it will minimize to the left instead of into the dock when you're using Stage Manager. So minimizing works like that as well. So the idea here is you've got all these windows. These windows are still on the desktop. Matter of fact, if I do Control Up arrow, I can see they're still there like before. But now instead of all crowding the space here, they're all here on the left, except the one I'm looking at. If I were to expand this window, that it would gracefully push all that stuff aside, and it would still come up if I move my pointer to the left there, like that. So you don't have to leave the left side unoccupied. You can push the things off, and it doesn't matter if you're using, say, app switcher to switch like that, then it just works gracefully like that. So up to you whether or not you leave the left side open. It's also possible to group windows that are not in the same app. So for instance, I had those 3 windows here in Safari. I've got this Notes window. Let's say I wanted to use Notes and a Safari window together. I could grab a Safari window and drag it over. And now I've got Safari and Notes together here. If I go to Reminders, notice how it puts both those away as a pair, as a set. So I can go in and those 2 are together, and then I could, manipulate, kind of have desktops inside of desktops using Stage Manager. There are also some options here. If you go to the new system settings, which we'll be looking at next, and then to desktop and dock, there are some Stage Manager settings. Under Customize, you can do the single window mode. So if you use that, then you go to one of these windows. Let's say it's one that has 2 in it, not 2 of the same. Let me go to Safari.
Okay. Oh, well, it would be the usual 130, something like that.
Could you mute yourself, please?
Okay. Anything you want me to bring? Anything you want me to bring?
Sorry, Gary.
Okay.
That's all right. Give me time to get
Later.
this
Fine.
together.
Please go on.
Okay. So if you're in Safari here and you've got multiple windows open, you can see I've got like 4 or 5 windows here. Notice if I select each one, I'm in that single window mode. Every time I click, it just shuffles through these windows. So kind of a useful extra feature there. you also have the ability to hide or show desktop items. So notice here that when I'm using this, if I have something on the desktop, if I'm using Stage Manager, nothing appears there. Let's go and put some stuff on the desktop. I'll go to Finder here, and I'll just grab some documents. Let's see, miscellaneous. I'll grab a couple documents and I'll copy them to the desktop like that. And notice you don't see those unless I click on the desktop. If I'm looking at a window, like this reminders window, the desktop items go away. If I click on the desktop background, then everything is put away to the left here. There's no window showing, and I see these items. Now, there was a setting for that. If you wanted to have the items shown all the time, then you can turn on desktop items and then they'll appear there. So you have that option. Also, you could turn off recent applications, which will turn off the items to the left all the time, not just when you have something covering them. And you could still move the pointer to the left to bring them up. So
Gary, do you mind,
lots of things to
can we interrupt with questions?
Sure. Sure, yeah.
So would you always want to keep the desktop items visible if you want to drag and drop between Stage Manager apps?
Yeah, I mean, you could simply just, here with them not visible. So here it's a little hard, but I could click on the desktop. Then let's see if I drag here, say I can drag it into the app like that. Well, actually it didn't let me do it. So yeah, I think if you're if you're like me and you don't have anything on your desktop anyway, then you could just have that turned off and keep it clean. Or if you just don't drag things into Windows from the desktop like that. So yeah, that's why that setting is there. It's like if you do use drag from the desktop into an app often, of course, you don't have to have, you could switch Stage Manager off in a situation like that. If you're doing something like this is a full screen app, you could see how it's not using Stage Manager because it's a full screen app. And in fact, if you are using multiple desktops, so I've got these two desktops here, remember that? Let's move over one window, let's say the reminders window to desktop 2. And actually, let's now go to, let's see, what sort of weird mode am I in now? Okay. There we go. Okay, so notice here, desktop 1, I have Stage Manager on. Desktop 2 looks normal, but that's only because I only have one window open there. If I were to open something else, like let's open the App Store. Now you can see I'm using Stage Manager on that second desktop. So both desktops are using Stage Manager. So you can combine things, you can nest them. You could have multiple desktops and they're all using Stage Manager. And if you happen to have one app or one window only open on a desktop, then it really doesn't behave any different than a normal desktop, which is kind of useful. But yeah, it's there's so many different variations about how you could use it. Now, a thing about Stage Manager that could make it attractive to some people is it's also for the iPad. So iPad OS 16, which also comes out on Monday, that has Stage Manager as well. Now, on the Mac, we already have all these great multitasking options, with the Windows and the multiple desktops and all of that. On the iPad, we really don't have any good multitasking options. There are multitasking options, but none of them have really done well to get people to use them. So Stage Manager may be finally that good way to multitask on an iPad. And if you're using an iPad and a Mac, it may be good to use Stage Manager on both just for consistency.
Gary?
Yeah.
This is just a question that beyond what Jonathan said. If you're talking about dragging and dropping, it sort of depends on where you're dragging and dropping from. You can have a Finder window paired up with any other app in Stage Manager, and you can then drag and drop from the Finder to the Finder from that pairing of apps.
And you can see if I hover and wait, it does switch, and then I could drop, something into something like that. So it doesn't work to drag it into this, but if you wait. So in this case, if I wanted to drag this into say notes from the desktop, all I did was click on I click on the desktop, it brings this up, I drag this, I go to notes and I wait, and it opens notes, and now I can place it inside the note. So yeah, so you turn it on and off here. A trick is that you can also drag this up into the menu bar. And then if you hold the Option key and click this, it turns Stage Manager on and off. Although I really don't feel that Stage Manager is the kind of option where you would be, turning it on and off all the time. It's either you use it or you don't use it. I don't feel it's something that you want to switch between all the time. It would probably be more confusing to do it that way. So, and it's going to be for some people and not for others. Already from the beta, there are reports of people saying they love it, they switched to it, and they're never looking back. And there's other people that are saying they tried it and it's not for them. So, yeah, it's going to be subjective. So let's get to the second most visible thing that is new in macOS Ventura. And this is one of those things that is not it's not additive. It's something that changed, and it's changed now. Let's get rid of this stuff here. And that is the Settings app. And the Settings app replaces System Preferences. So when you go to the Apple menu now, instead of System Preferences, you see System Settings. That's much more than a change in just a word there, because if you launch System Settings, now you get a completely different looking app than System Preferences. And this actually looks almost identical to what you have on the iPad, similar to what you have on the iPhone. You just don't have as much screen real estate. And you can see here, there's a list of items on the left or topics on the left. And then whichever one you select, you see the settings here on the right. Very different than the preferences, which we've had throughout Mac OS 10 all the way back, for almost 20 years. And then those were very similar to preferences and Control Center in previous versions of Mac OS. So this is a big overhaul of how we change things, settings and preferences on the Mac. The good news is for people coming from the iPhone and iPad to the Mac, which is like one of the main ways new Mac users come on board, this will look more familiar. And the other good news is that more of the items are now brought in line. So, previously I would have to say, oh, you want to change that on your iPhone? You go to Settings and then here. But on the Mac, you go to System Preferences and it's a completely different place. Now it's being brought more in line. So it'll be for a lot of things in the same spots. You can see right here, like if I choose Appearance, I get a lot of the things that we used to see under what was called General in System Preferences. General, of course, on the iPhone and iPad is a completely different thing. And now it's kind of brought in line here, and you see similar, general settings. Basically, this is like a miscellaneous category with lots of miscellaneous different settings in here. So it's going to take some getting used to, because if you wanted to change, say, the highlight color, before in System Preferences, you would go to General. It's not there. Now you go to Appearance. And then all of the other things here, they look kind of familiar to how System Preferences looked. There's accessibility, for instance. There's Siri and Spotlight. There's, instead of security and privacy, privacy and security. And you select which one of these you want, and then you see the controls here on the right. The controls are modernized, like you might notice, under Appearance here. This is a switch rather than a checkbox. The little pop-up menus are modern pop-up menus. And things are in general in more of a list format, which is also good news, because now you've got this big list under Control Center, for instance. This is different than System Preferences, which sometimes had a really kind of, laid out little set of settings here, left and right, up and down. And if Apple wanted to add a setting, they would have to kind of redesign how everything was. Now that everything's in this list, they could easily add new things to the list, which means hopefully in the future, we'll get more ways to customize our Macs because it'll be easier for them to add it. You basically have to look through here to find things. Some things got separated. For instance, we used to have desktop and screensaver, but now we've got two separate sections. One is wallpaper, which is the equivalent to desktop, and screensaver is in its own. So one system preference now splits up into two different topics for system settings. But other things get combined, like Siri and Spotlight used to be two separate things. Now they're combined into one. So you get a lot of that. Some things are now under general, here's sharing and time machine and startup desk, language and region and date and time. They're all underneath the one category here of general, and you can dig down into that and find the same settings, but with new controls. So you have to look through all of this. One of the most confusing ones, I think, is keyboard. Keyboard is a really useful one. And if you go into it now, you'll find everything you would find under the old system preference keyboard. But now to get to, say, keyboard shortcuts, there's a button, and you click the button, and all that stuff's under there. To get to text replacements, it's also a button, and you get to all of that, which is kind of a shame because one of the main reasons I would go to system preferences is to get to keyboard shortcuts or text replacements. And now they're under keyboard and hidden under a button. So it's going to take some getting used to find all the new stuff. Fortunately, the search feature is much better with settings than it was in preferences. In preferences, a lot of times, if you didn't type exactly this right thing, it wouldn't even show a result. But now, if you're looking for something, you type it and it will take you, right to it. So here for Hot Corners, it actually even opens up Hot Corners. It shows you that it's under desktop and dock, but it opens it up there. And also now it's under accessibility as well. So it's listed in here somewhere. There it is, Hot Corners. So you can, find things a little easier here with these little descriptions and all of that. So it's going to take some getting used to. If you use system preferences a lot, it's going to be a frustrating first month with Ventura trying to figure out where things are. And eventually, we'll get there. There are some neat new tricks, like, for instance, if we go to, users and groups used to have something called login items, and it's not there anymore. It is now under privacy and security. And let's see, where is it under privacy and security? I'm trying to remember now. Let's search for it. Just like I said, login items. Let's see. There it goes. So it was under general. Yeah, so general login items. So it's moved, but it's much better now. Before, you would just have this. And this was the nice login items section where you can add things. And sometimes when you installed an app, it would add itself under login items to launch when you logged in. Most of the time, apps didn't use that. They actually put themselves in the system library in a folder that had them launch automatically. And the only way for you to stop them from launching automatically was to know exactly what folder in the library to go to and what to change. But now those things, called daemons, actually, those launch daemons are now listed here with the other login items. And you could see them all and turn them on and off without having to go into your library. But one of the things to be wary about is the fact that it shows the items by developer name, not by app name, which is going to add, I'm already seeing a lot of confusion with this because the developer names, we often don't know those. We know the app name. So you come here and you're looking, and you're like, what are these things that have permission to launch on my system when I log in? And, if you don't know that, Telestream is the maker of ScreenFlow, then you're like, what is that? If you don't know that this person here develops SwitchResX, you're like, what is that? So it's going to be the kind of thing where a lot of people are going to see stuff here, get alarmed, and you just need to search online and you'll quickly find out what each of these developers actually makes and say, oh, that app. Yeah, I love that app. I've got that app. That's what it is. Okay. So that's system settings. Also notice that in any other app you are in, if you go to settings, or if you go to the main menu there, instead of preferences, it says settings now, just to be consistent. But that may not be true for third-party apps. Third-party apps would have to update and change preferences to settings, and they may not want to even do that for years. So any questions about a settings app? Okay.
One quick one.
Oh, yeah.
Did you say, I was distracted when you started talking about Stage Manager. Is that a whole option in those settings list now?
Yeah, I mean, you turn it on and off here in Control Center, but it is under desktop and dock. There is a switch here as well. It's the same switch that you would get by turning this on, but there's a customize button here as well. So if you turn it on, you can customize, and you've got your settings that I'm talking about.
Okay,
there.
Thank you.
So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some new features and apps. So Mail has some exciting new features. One of those new features is that I can compose a new message, and that'll be something, and let's say I want to send that message, and then I realize, oh, wait, hold on, I forgot something. There's an undo send button here. Click that, and it undoes the send. It's actually a trick, just like every other email app that's ever had an undo button. It waits 10 seconds to send the email. So you go send and it waits 10 seconds. And if you hit undo, it stops right there and doesn't actually send it. But that's really handy because how many times, can you catch your own mistake there within 10 seconds? The other thing you could do here is instead of hitting the send button, you could click here and you can send at a future time, including choosing send later and any date and time you want. So if you know somebody is, it's the evening and they're not even going to get to see this until the next morning, you could schedule it to send at 10 a.m. the next day instead of, cluttering up their email overnight. So you've got that. You've got this really cool feature here. If I were to put, here is the attachment, and then notice my mistake here, I'm going to send this. It's going to recognize from the language that I used that I probably wanted to include an attachment and I didn't. And it's going to prompt me for that. So that's kind of handy there. Also, search is pretty, is improved. If I search for something, let's search for an email having to do with vacation. Notice how I spelled vacation wrong, but also notice how it figured out that what I meant was vacation anyway, and it found all the emails there. So the search gets a little smarter. So some good new features to Mail.
Gary?
Yeah.
If you set a message to send later for a day or two later, let's say, I would assume there's some way to cancel the sending in that interim time period if you change your mind.
Yes. Yeah, you can go, I think it's there's a scheduled box appears, or it's an outbox or something like that. And you can go back in and then change the schedule for it or unschedule it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go into messages. So messages also has some similar things. So you can send a message to somebody. Let's send, so I send this as a test. Now that I send that, and this is an iMessage that is going to another person with iMessage. If I control click on it, I've got undo send, so I can take it back. As long as it's iMessage, if it's SMS, it's gone, right? It goes over the mobile phone networks. But I could also edit the message and, change it in some way. And then it says edited, and I can click edited, and so could the other person, and they could see the edits. So this is handy for, like, I know, for instance, my wife and I are always, making little typos in our messages, and then we correct them with another message saying, I meant this or whatever. Now we just go back and edit the word to make it a little easier. You could, let's see, also in messages, you have the ability now to control click on a conversation here and mark as unread, which is useful. Another thing, and this is something that's not being talked about much, is previously, if you wanted to delete a conversation, these things over here are conversations. These are messages. So often people say, how do I delete messages? Deleting messages is simply, control click on the message, and then you could, use delete there to just get it out of your list. But people usually mean they want to delete a conversation. Say they get a 2-factor code, or they get like a, some sort of code from the doctor's office or whatever saying, remember your appointment or whatever. They just want to get it out of the list here. You could control click on it and say delete to delete the conversation. But the frustrating thing was, before Ventura, you couldn't do that with multiple conversations because you could only select one at a time. But now you can use the command key to select multiple conversations, or you could use the shift key to select a range, just like you can in lists and other parts of the operating system. And then you can delete and delete those conversations together. So nice new feature there. Yeah. So now let's go to Spotlight. So Spotlight is a little different Spotlight's like one step forward, one step back kind of thing. So in Spotlight, Spotlight search comes up with command space, just like before. You do a search like this, and you see your results here. One of the changes is, good news is that Quick Look now works with Spotlight. So you're in Spotlight, you get to a document, you want to use Quick Look with it. Before you couldn't. Now you can hit the space bar and Quick Look will work with that document. On the other hand, the preview doesn't work inside a Spotlight anymore. So before you could actually get a preview of this inside a Spotlight, now you have to use Quick Look. So they jumped right from, you couldn't use Quick Look, you just had to see the preview inside. So now you can use Quick Look, but you can no longer look inside. So, a lot of people are going to be happy with that because Quick Look actually does give you a lot more functionality. You can resize the window, you can move the window off to the side, all sorts of things. So it's definitely the superior way to do it. But if somebody has gotten used to over the years just saying, okay, I can't do Quick Look, I have to do it in Spotlight. Well, now it's all changed. Other things are, now there's image search inside of Spotlight. So I search for dog here, and I notice that I get results from my Photos app of photos that it recognizes that there's a dog in. So that's kind of nice. Before, you would have to go into the Photos app to do that. Also, there are more actions that you can do. Like one of those actions is, I'm going to show you in a minute, there's a new app called Clock. You can actually type timer, and you can actually start a timer now inside of Spotlight. But you could also use anything that's in shortcuts. So if you're a shortcuts user, notice here I've got shortcuts, and I've got a shortcut here like let's see, border and caption. If I go in Spotlight, I can actually find the shortcut in Spotlight and activate it there. Previously, with shortcuts, you either had to have it in the menu bar here, or you had to go and launch shortcuts and launch it from there. So, and the menu bar, pin it to the menu bar, that could get crowded really fast. So, if you have 50 different shortcuts, you don't have a menu with 50 different items. You would have like a menu with maybe 5 items that you use often. And then everything else, the other 45, you would have to go into shortcuts and find it. Now you can just use Spotlight for it. So that's really nice. I think it makes shortcuts that much more useful. Let's take a look at, so I mentioned there's a new app called Clock. So there's 2 new apps that we get, and they are both apps that are on the iPad. One is called Clock, and I had it set to full screen. Sorry about that. But this is what the Clock app looks like. It looks exactly like the iPad Clock app. You've got 4 sections. The world clock, you can add clocks to this. It'll show you what's day, what's night. It'll show you your locations. It'll show you sunset and sunrise in each one. You can move these around. You can click the plus button and add a new location here as a new clock. You've got alarms. This works just like the iPhone and iPad. You have these alarms here. You could add a new alarm for a time, have it repeat on different days of the week, set the sound for the alarm, give it a name if you want. And, you can set it to whether or not you allow snooze or not for that. When you have alarms here, you can turn them on and off. So you can add a whole bunch of them. And so now we have alarms on the Mac. Finally, you don't have to reach for your iPhone to set an alarm. You've got a stopwatch. Actually, it usually looks like this. And start the stopwatch. You can do laps like that, and you can stop. There is a alternate view of an analog stopwatch like that. And probably most useful of all, you've got timers, which are useful. A lot of people love to use timers for productivity stuff. Give yourself 15 minutes to accomplish a task, or give yourself a 15-minute break or whatever. And you could set an amount for the timer, sound to play when it ends. You also have the option to say stop playing. So you could use this as a sleep timer for, say, music. You have it play music, set a timer for half an hour, set it to stop playing, and the music will turn off after half an hour. And then the coolest thing is when you start the timer, you don't have to have the Clock app open. It actually shows you right up here the timer. So it's in the menu bar. So I could quit the Clock app now, and it's up there. And if I click this, it brings up the Clock app, goes right here with all these controls. And you can actually use some of these things. You can use the alarms and you can use the timers without the clock app at all. So I showed you in Spotlight before how, I could do start timer right here, and that brings up this, and I could start a timer. I could also, I think it's alarm, create alarm. So I can create an alarm there in Spotlight, but you could also have Siri do all this for you. Start 15-minute timer.
15 minutes counting down.
So you can see it's there. Pause my timer.
Paused.
Resume timer.
Resuming.
Restart timer.
It's reset 15 minutes starting now.
Stop timer.
It's canceled.
And then, of course, you could say, set an alarm for noon.
Done.
And if I click on it here, you could see under alarms, it added a alarm for that, and I could turn it off and all that. So you have access to a lot of that without even bringing up the clock app if you want. So a great new addition to Mac OS. The other app is weather, and the weather app is the same as the weather app on the iPad, or at least the weather app on the iPad in iOS or iPad OS 16. It's really detailed. So you can have multiple locations here on the left, and you could easily search for a new location. And add it. And well, once it's there, then I click add, and now it's added. And you've got all these different locations. You can switch between them. Use your location. Then you've got all this weather information, and everything you can dig down further by clicking on it. So really detailed weather information in the app here. So yeah, so you don't have to go to a website for weather anymore, or bring out your iPhone because you like how the app looks there. You can now access all of that inside of your Mac just using this weather app. Any questions about the clock and weather apps?
There was in the chat, Gary, can timer launch a shortcut instead of playing a sound, sort of like cron?
No, it can't. It just plays a sound or stops playing. It doesn't have that option to launch a shortcut. So yeah, it doesn't have the automations that are part of the Shortcuts app on the iPhone. They're still not there on the Mac. So let's see. Other changes. So Reminders has a neat new trick. Reminders now allows you to create a template. So you've got, say, a grocery shopping list like this. You create this grocery shopping list. You realize every time you go grocery shopping, you at least want these items here. So what you can do is you can go to File, and then you can save it as a template. And then you give it a template name like that. And then when you create a new list, you have the option to just create the new list like before, but you could also say, I want to select the new list from a template. And then you could select the template that you want and create a list, and it creates a new list using the items that were part of that template. So like really useful set for like grocery shopping, or like if you have your daily tasks, and every day there's like 5 things that you need to accomplish, plus miscellaneous things. You can have a daily, task template, create it in the morning, and starts with those 5 items. Then you could still add more items to it, and off you go. Or for like a packing list, it's like put all your default stuff on the packing list, create a new list from the template, and then check off each item. And then the next time you take a trip, you can create a new list from that template as well. You could also pin any list you want. So if there's a list that you really, that you have a ton of lists, you can drag one up here, or actually I think control click, pin it. That's it. And it adds it to this up there. So you can have your most used lists here at the top. And when you search now, you can search and apply a Boolean operator. So you can say any selected or all selected for tags. So this is for when you're using tags and list items. Before it was just, I think, all tags. Now you can do any or all. That's kind of useful. In the Notes app, you've got the ability, one of the things you can do is under settings, before you had locked notes, and Apple did it in a bad way with lock notes. They allowed us to lock notes with the password, and you created a new password. And I can tell you how many times I heard from people that forgot their password for notes, right? Because you have all these other passwords for things. And then notes is like, create a new password for this. And then it would just be another password to remember. But now you can use your login password instead of custom password. So that just means that you use your regular login password to unlock your notes. And if you have Touch ID, then you just use Touch ID. So it creates that extra level of security where you have to log in again to get to those notes, but you don't have another password to remember. So that's really useful in notes. Let's see. In the a bunch of new features are in the Photos app. And the Photos app has, first of all, the hidden and recently deleted items are now hidden behind your login password. So I just use Touch ID there. But to get to either one of these, you have to use the Touch ID or enter your password. Just a little extra layer of security. In the editing, if you go to you go to a image like this and you edit it and you make adjustments, like you adjust the lighting and the color, whatever you want, you can go to, image copy edits. And then you could go to another image and you can go to image and then paste edits. And it will take those adjustments that you apply to the one and apply to the other. So usually, like, you would want to use those, say you take a picture of a landscape and you take 7 pictures and you adjust the first one to get the color just right. Now you can copy that, select the other 6 and apply the same adjustments to those other 6. So that's really handy.
Gary, would that apply to a crop also, or not necessarily?
No, I think it's just the adjustments. So if I go in here and edit, crop, like that, done, and I do copy edits, it shouldn't apply it here. Paste edits, no, it's just doing the adjustments, which is probably how it should work.
Yep.
Let's see. And so a big new thing is that there's now a section here called duplicates. Go to that section, and it's a special section there that looks for duplicates in your collection, and it shows you the duplicates. Now, it looks for more than just identical files. It'll look for ones that are pictures that are very close. So if you've ever snapped the shutter twice by accident and taken basically the same picture, but they're not exactly the same picture, they're half a second off, it'll find those. It also find, like, if you take one and somehow you exported it and compressed it and then brought it back into Photos, and you have 2 different versions of the same photo, different compression levels, it'll find those as well. Now, when it finds them, they will be shown here next to each other, and it will show you the size. You can actually go in and look at each one and then use the arrow keys. I'm using the arrow keys right now to go back and forth between the 2, and you can't tell because they're identical, which is, what you want. But if there was a slight difference, if it was a picture of somebody and you could tell their hair was a little slightly different in each one, then you would see that difference by flipping back and forth. Now, I could select one and delete it, and then I would just have the one left. But I could also merge. There's the merge 2 items here. And what merging does is, since the photos are identical anyway, you only have one left, and it merges the information. So if, like, in the first one you gave it a title and the second one you gave it some keywords, it'll merge those so the remaining photo has the title and the keywords. If the first photo is put in album A and the second photo was put in album B, now the one remaining photo will be in both album A and album B. So that's what merging does. In a case where the photo is different, and here you can see it found 3 copies of this photo, but this first one is 4.1 megs, and these are smaller. So what happened here is I exported this, I shrank it in another app, and I brought that back into Photos, and I brought it back in twice. If I were to merge these 3, it would be smart enough to say, take the biggest one, the highest resolution one, and use that. And in the cases where they're the same resolution, but they're slightly different photos. It's just going to take the one on the left, and it's going to merge all the information, the keywords, the title. And if you have two titles, like the first photo's titled something and the second photo's titled something else, it actually puts both titles there, like as two lines in the same title. So it keeps all the information. So it's really handy. One thing to note is it takes time to find these. So you upgrade to Ventura on Monday. Don't expect to go and find duplicates there right away. Expect to find duplicates maybe later in the week. And, it's going to go through your collection when you're not using your Mac, when the processor isn't being used for something else during quiet times. It will be comparing photos and it will populate this duplicates folder here. And also, if you have no duplicates, you won't see the duplicates folder at all. It won't be there and be empty. It just won't be there at all. And so that's that. There is one more really cool feature in photos. So let's go to a photo like this. If I normally were to, copy this photo, I get the whole photo, but I can actually control click on the photo. And in addition to copy, there's copy subject. And notice when I move my pointer over copy subject, that little halo that's forming around me, the subject of the photo. And if I select copy subject, it just copies the subject and not the background. So it's using AI and the neural network parts of your Mac's chips to find the subject here as opposed to the background. Now, if I went to another app, like say Mail, composed a new message and pasted, notice how it pastes in just the subject there. So a neat thing. This is also on the iPhone and iPad in the latest versions of iOS as well.
Gary, would that work the other way? Could you take yourself out of the picture and could it interpolate tree trunks and sand?
No. So the feature is just copy subject, not like the opposite. But of course, we've always had the ability to use third-party apps, like Photoshop, Pixelmator, Acorn, Affinity, and all those to do anything we want, cut out anything we want. Even Pixelmator has its own select subject, ability, which has been around for like about a year now, where you can grab the subject. And then, of course, since you're in an image editing app, then you could say invert selection. And instead of the subject, now you have everything else. So, yeah, so you still have to go to kind of the image editing apps for anything more. But for a really quick thing like this, like for instance, if this is a photo of a friend and you want to use it as the contact photo, in the contacts app, instead of saying, copy the whole thing, you could just copy them out of it. Or like if it's a picture of your dog but it's just your dog lying around in your messy living room doing something cute, you can copy the subject and just get the dog doing something cute and not the mess on the floor all around them. So
suppose multiple subjects were in the picture.
It does grab multiples. It's not going to be perfect because it's just trying its best to interpret what's in the photo. So even sometimes you get bits of the background that it can't tell the difference between the subject and that. So it's definitely not pro level. It's definitely kind of like consumer level, have fun with it kind of thing. Not like, I need to, make an image for, a print publication and I just want to get the subject. You definitely want to go to, Photoshop or whatever for that. This is more for just like, I want to send a quick message to somebody and show them my dog or my friend or whatever, and just copy subject.
Gary, if you save that copied subject, what format does it save it in?
Well, it's copied. So like if I were to copy subject here, the closest I can get to saving it would be to go to preview and
you can pick it.
So open a preview, and in preview, you could go to, new from clipboard, and then you would get this. And then when you go to save, then you choose the format. It's going to default to PNG because the alpha channel, the transparency around it, PNG's the only thing that could support that. But if you were to switch, say, to JPEG, then it would, allow you to save it as a JPEG, and that would just be a solid background.
Gary, I thought I saw a demonstration of this, and somebody had a picture of a family, and they removed one person out of the picture. and they were just able to lift them out of the photo as if they weren't in it at all. Is that
Well,
true?
let's see. So it grabs both of these guys. I don't think there's any way to do it here in, let's see, if I were to just click on him, now it's still going to grab both of them. I think maybe in iOS, it might vary a little bit depending upon where you, because in iOS, you can click and hold on the subject itself. You don't have to do the right click thing here. So you may be able to just click on one of them, but I haven't been able to see any way to do that. I don't know if you can do that on the iPhone, but I'm just theorizing without trying it. But yeah, there's really no option here. You just have copy subject or not. Obviously, if you took this into, if I copy this and then went to preview and then new from clipboard, I get both of them. I could, then go and just select, a portion of this. And actually, I think if I went to this, I could do lasso selection, select just the one like that, then copy, then new from clipboard there. Then I get the one. So, maybe they were showing that using preview to further customize the result.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's see here. I want to show you, so this is difficult to show in a presentation like this, but I'm going to try. If I go to, let's say, QuickTime Player here, and I'm hoping, let's see that I've got, I used to have a demo for this. Let's see. I'm going to show a video, and I'm going to try to use the new, let's see, there's me talking in one of my things, right? And if I bytes per pixel. So if you have a photo. Okay, now let's say I wanted to see what I was saying. There's a new accessibility feature that will try to, in real time, using AI, figure out what it is I'm saying and display it on the screen. Basically, closed captioning done by your Mac. So if we go into system settings, and then we go into accessibility, and then we look at live captions. If I let's turn on live captions here, and then let's play this video. 1 million pixels. It may actually be. You'll see the gray box there. 3 bytes for each pixel. Let's see if it's going to do it. Blue. Now, it's cumbersome to represent there it goes. All file sizes as bytes. We'll be talking about billions of different bytes for file sizes, trillions and even more for the size of hard drives. So we have other. So you can see it started to do it there. Did a little sample for you. It works better for if you're not using here. I'm using Zoom to present, and I think it's confusing it because there's multiple video streams going in multiple directions. When you're just doing nothing, just using your Mac normal, and you play a video, whether it's on the web or you play it here, in QuickTime Player, you do get a nice, set of kind of closed captions. They're inaccurate, so you can't rely on every word, but it gives you the gist of what's being said. And that's just as part of the system now. And you could set up things here. What's more interesting, and it's definitely something I can't demonstrate here, is you've got live captions in FaceTime. If you turn that on, this works in FaceTime. So you FaceTime with somebody else, and what they say actually then appears under them, interpreted as best it can. So that's kind of a neat way to close caption a live conversation with somebody in FaceTime. There's also a couple other neat things in accessibility here, since we're here. One is under audio, you've got background sounds. So background sounds are the ability to have these background sounds like rain or ocean or noise or stream just playing. It's just a looping background noise. And a lot of people like to use these for concentration and such. In iOS 15, they were on the iPhone and iPad. So now we get them in macOS Ventura as well. Another thing that we've got is under voice control. So voice control is kind of a more advanced form of dictation. If you look under commands, there's now spelling mode. So if you're using voice control as your dictation method, you can actually say the word spelling mode, and then you could spell out a word letter for letter. And then you would say dictation mode to turn it off. So for spelling out difficult words, you could use that now, whereas before you would just have to type that one word. There was no way to actually get it to type that for you by dictating. And let's see, a couple little minor things just to finish up here. One is in maps. You can now do, if you do maps and you do directions. So let's show directions. I'll say, from Coors Field to Golden, Colorado, and it will show me the directions, but then I can add a third location, and actually many more than 3 locations, and say, let's go to the Apple store after that. And it's all 3. It will give you a route between those 3 locations, and you can reorder them if you want. So a nice feature that they finally got around to adding in maps. And one last one I want to show you is also a little hard to demonstrate, but this one allows you to use your iPhone's cameras as a webcam. So before, if you were doing something that, let's say I'm going to use QuickTime Player here, and I'm going to do a new movie recording. And let's see, it's actually doing it already because I was using it before. So I'm actually using this iPhone as my, it's actually the wrong direction. Using this iPhone as my webcam here. And if you go into Control Center under Video Effects, I could see here, I could choose the iPhone here as the camera. I can use center stage, which means as I move, that the camera will move a little bit to make it look like I'm in center stage without me moving this. I can have portrait mode on or off to blur the background. And there's
sorry, Gary, how did you turn that on? How did you turn that on?
You turn it on in Control Center here. So actually, I think, no, I take that back. Since I'm in QuickTime Player, the way you switch cameras in QuickTime Player, it works just like if you have 2 webcams. If you've ever hooked up 2 webcams to your Mac, you go to whatever it is you're using, this time QuickTime Player, and I have cameras, and I have 2 cameras listed. So I could switch to my FaceTime camera here, which is there, and then I could switch to my iPhone camera. And it's just automatic because both the iPhone and the Mac are using the same Apple ID and they're near each other. So
do they have to be on the same Wi-Fi channel for this to work?
No. They're doing Wi-Fi directly between each other instead of through the router. So it's doing it same way it does AirDrop or handoff and copy and paste between devices. It's using the continuity features. So the cool thing about this, of course, is the iPhone cameras are way better than the cameras on top of most Macs or a webcam that you may want to buy. And it also has a mode called called Desk View. And what Desk View does is you could see here, it creates this area here at the bottom because your iPhone has these wide angle lenses. It takes this area at the bottom. So if I were to set it up to be like, here's my desk, and maybe instead of a keyboard here, I've got a chessboard or a craft, and showing you how to, needlepoint or something like that. And I've got it laid out here. I could start Desk View, and now I get this other camera here. I think it just appears. I think it's just, it's just here in this other window. So the idea is that it won't really work with QuickTime Player, but it would work with something like Zoom, where I could then share this window. And notice how it's showing this like it's a top-down view of my desk, but it's not a top-down view. It's a kind of a perpendicular view. So it's interpreting the image to change the angle So now I could be doing something here and demonstrate how it's working using desk view. So it's kind of a neat thing. And you just close this window. So kind of a cool thing, definitely something worth playing with when you get, you know, when you've updated. Obviously, you need to have iOS 16 on the iPhone for that to work. But there's even a neat, I got it the other day. I got the this little clip thing. Belkin makes this, and Apple sells it because Apple decided they don't want to make one on their own. It's just a little clip thing that it's the MagSafe here. So it fits onto the back and then allows you to, you would actually clip it this way onto your top of your MacBook. And then the camera then would be in the center, and you can easily use your iPhone as a webcam or a nicer web camera. And then of course, if you've got a Mac Mini, you don't have a webcam. So then this could turn your iPhone into a webcam without having to buy something extra.
Gary?
Yeah.
As one who often helps people with their Mac problems and demonstrates things, I can see where that capability would be very useful, because up till now, we always have to say, okay, you can't see what I'm doing on the keyboard, but I'm holding down the command key. Okay, you can't see me, but I'm pushing the up arrow key. Now we could just show people, you know.
Yeah, you could share, you know, if you do creative sharing of what's on your screen and have that as a little window. Yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do. I'm going to do, now that I just got this yesterday, and I'm looking forward to, you know, I have a video coming up on the continuity camera, but not really about desk view. I mentioned desk view when I show it for a second or something, but I want to do a video at some point where I, you know, bring out a chessboard or, you know, something else like a, I don't know, a Lego set, and then, you know, show like how you can demonstrate doing something, you know, using the desk view mode. So it's really cool. It's just, and it's amazing how, you know, the camera's pointed straight at you, and yet the view you get looks like the camera is hovering above, pointing down. And it's amazing how how they're able to interpret the wide angle lens, you know. But I guess it's not that amazing if you've got a car that has one of those things where, you know, there's the cameras around the car, and then it shows like the top down view of your car, like there's a camera above your car. You know, it's basically the same type of technology.
Yeah, I'd suggest something like the Lego view or knitting over chess, because a few people might be a little intimidated by something.
Checkers. I could do a backgammon
with wide appeal.
Could do, yeah, I could do
checkers might not be so bad.
Tic-tac-toe or something. Yeah.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. Cool. Well, any questions about, I mean, Ventura, it's coming out Monday, and, you know, we'll all be able to get it then. It seems really stable. You know, it's not really many issues with it. Any issues with it are kind of with the new features, you know, oh, I wish the new feature did this, or I hope the new feature gets improved, you know, not necessarily that, you know, something's not, you know, some old feature has been taken away or isn't working anymore. You know, it's it seems like a pretty good, stable update. I haven't really noticed any change in the last like 3 or 4 betas. You know, I know they've done subtle little tweaks, but you know, I recorded some videos for my new course 3 or 4 betas ago, and everything worked perfectly. So that was nice to see.
So Gary, Tim Childers has a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Can I buy any fingerprint reader for an older Mac that doesn't have a built-in reader?
So no. Well, yes and no. It depends how old your Mac is, right? Apple sells the Touch ID keyboard now, and that's mainly for the iMacs. But I know it also works for my Mac Studio. I'm trying to think if it works for the Mac Mini. I think it does, but you know, read the requirements for it. I would only get the Touch ID keyboard from Apple, because Touch ID is its own special thing, right? It's not just a fingerprint reader. It's mainly a secure enclave that securely stores your data and, you know, allows you to basically use that instead of a password. Whereas a fingerprint reader, all that does is says, you know, fingerprint is good or not. So you can't just use a third-party fingerprint reader for security reasons. But that Touch ID keyboard that Apple sells checks to see which models it works with. I think you have to have one of the newer models probably with the M1 or M2 in order for that to work at all.
If you
Yeah,
have,
Gary,
you have
Aaron just replied to that, and it does require the M1 or the M2.
Yeah.
Yes.
I watched a podcast and saw a clever hack where someone did this. They wanted to get the reader. They actually invested in the keyboard, took the keyboard apart, extracted the relevant pieces, did a 3D printer to make a case for it, and put it right under their desk, and it worked fine. It actually became a fingerprint reader that they'd created.
But why not just use the keyboard?
No, it had to do with, their point was, I like the clickety clacky old fashioned keyboard. I have a feel, that kind of, it was that kind of thing.
I don't know.
Combined with a, let's see if I can do this project.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, as a hobby project, those things are fun, but practically, yeah, they probably don't make too much sense. I love the Apple keyboards. I mean, myself, as somebody that writes a lot, I think they're fantastic. And, I get the appeal of the old clickety clack keyboards and stuff, but for me, it's the current Apple keyboards are, great to type on.
Gary, I had a question about photos. I've been running the beta for Ventura, but the only person in my household that is, so I have not really been able to experiment with the shared photos library. Have you done anything with that? I'm looking forward to getting others in the household converted over next week and experimenting more with it.
Yeah, no, I haven't really gotten a chance to play with it yet because of that same reason right there. You've got, because I need more than one person to do that, and kind of you need to have all your operating systems going. I want to iPhone, iPad, and Mac all running the latest, all capable of doing the iCloud shared library, and have the other people that are sharing also all updated. But it seems pretty straightforward, and it's a long overdue feature. I'm looking forward to it.
Bruce, did you have a question?
Me? No, not that.
Okay. Well, actually, could people raise their hands? And meanwhile, let me start out with a couple of things. First, on the thing you just showed about the continuity camera, Gary, are you familiar with Camo Studio?
Yeah, sure. I've used that.
So I guess the question for me is, once continuity camera comes in, does Camo Studio still have any utility or not so much?
Trying to think. I mean, there may be edge cases where Camo Studio can be used for something that continuity camera can't. But I haven't done any testing, with different apps and things like that. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how they respond. With features. They might come up with a list of features. Here's some things that we can do that you can't do normally. I mean, certainly, one of the nice things you could use it for is for older iPhones, because people may like to use an older iPhone as a camera, one that they're not using as their current carry around iPhone. So it may still have utility like that, but probably for most people now they just can use continuity camera.
The other question I had, can you go back to mail? Isn't there an added feature for being able to be reminded of a message at a later time?
Yes, it's called follow-up, and it's not very good. Which is why I don't even mention it.
Because that seemed like a really useful feature, but it's not ready for prime time yet.
Well, it's not what you want. So, ideally what you would want, well, first of all, what we really want is a snooze, right? Which is not it. You get an email like this and you say, great, but I don't need to deal with this email till Monday. I'd love to be able to have like snooze until Monday, and it's out of my inbox. My inbox is empty, and then this email reappears in my inbox on Monday. That's not what it does. What it does is that you send a message to somebody and say, "Hey, get me the TPS reports," and follow up will look at the language you use in your message, and then decide that it's going to remind you at a certain time that, this person hasn't responded yet to this, but you can't do it manually. You can't go and say, this is I want to get a reminder about this email on Monday. It's kind of done automatically, which to me kind of makes it, if you can't rely on it or you can't set it manually, kind of makes it useless. And there's also a feature, it'll also do this thing where it will, let's see, I'm trying to remember what it is now. Remind me. No, remind me in 1 hour. And then it's under remind me here. Now, what does that do? Because it's not out of the inbox, right? I would expect the remind me feature to take it out of my inbox and then put it back in my inbox in an hour. It doesn't. If I had a crowded inbox, you would see what it does. It would move it to the top after an hour. So for me, being like, I want inbox 0. I mean, this is obviously a demo account. This is a demo email here. My goal is my inbox is empty, right? If I'm going to go through my email, I go through my email till my inbox is empty, and then I move on to other things. And the next time I go to my email, I go through my email till my inbox is empty. Leaving my inbox with 3 things in it that all have a remind me, it's pointless. I mean, they're already there at the top of my inbox. And the next time I deal with my inbox, I'm going to go through it. So for my workflow, like remind me doesn't do anything. It would do something if it actually removed it from the inbox until the remind me time. Then it would be great. That simple change. I mean, all they would have to do is, add a little setting here that, remind me emails are invisible until the time or something. Then it would be great. So I don't mention either of those features because they're kind of like, where's the send later? Fantastic, right? That's a fantastic feature. The undo send, the remind me that I didn't include an attachment, they're all perfect. But the follow up and remind me features are like, so close to being useful, but not for me anyway.
Well, the follow up is the same as Gmail has been doing for a generation, really, isn't it?
I don't know, but can't you in Gmail, isn't it manual? I mean, can't you go and say, I want to follow up on this email, please?
Yes.
Whereas here in mail, you don't have that. You can't say, I want to follow up on this email. It just does it for emails it thinks that you should be, getting a follow-up for. So that's frustrating. I mean, I suppose it's better than nothing. I suppose if you don't use it, then you say, get me this TPS report on Monday, and you don't use it, then you don't get any message. Whereas with follow-up, you may get a message, So, but I think if it's important for me, I add it as a reminder anyway. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think now out of beta, it'll be interesting to see with real usage from regular users if there's any adjustments to either of those 2 features over the next year.
Other questions from Pi members?
Yes, I've got one.
Go ahead, Ginger.
Gary, this was a great talk. Really, really helpful.
Thanks.
I'm going to need help with Ventura along the way. And so I'm going to get on Google and say, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I have to mention Ventura now every time I ask, how do you open a file? Are they going to have information on both separately or?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, certainly if you're interested in like how something has changed in Ventura, include Ventura in your search, like, how has Finder changed in Ventura rather than just how has Finder changed. But I mean,
I forget to do that.
Yeah.
What's it going to give me?
I don't know. I mean, it's Google. Google's just, scours the web and catalogs everything and then gives you results. It's not a human that's putting everything together. It's all done by an algorithm. So it's hard to say. I like to use, if I'm looking for latest information on like the latest version of a software, I like to go into Google and you can, specify a time range, so like for the next month or 2, you could say, only show me results for the last month. So that way, if you ask like, how do I rename a file on the Mac? You could say, only show me results from the last month. And then if that feature had changed, which it hadn't in Ventura, you wouldn't get results from 2015. You would only get results from this last month, so you'd have a better chance of finding what you needed.
Gary, can I
Go,
address that?
go ahead, Bruce.
Yes. In virtually every version of the Mac OS since the beginning of time, Apple includes in the Finder, if you go to the Help menu, what's new in this Mac, or under the user guide, or somewhere.
Yeah.
They also have the same or similar information in the support. I believe it's in the support area of their website, but it's somewhere on Apple's website. You might have to look around a little bit to find it, but it'll be there once the new operating system Ventura is available. You could probably just go to Apple's website and search on what's new in Ventura and find it that way. See, there we go.
Yeah, so you can go to apple.com/macOS/Ventura, and then it gives you this very pretty looking page with all the big new features.
And for Ginger or for anybody, I would suggest that you do that once Ventura is available. And you don't have to read every little thing, obviously, but just kind of skim through and see what you think is, applies to your situation.
Right. You have this button here, all new features, which gives you text for all the details. Also, of course, people like me, we're going to do videos. I mean, my Monday video is, is what's new in macOS Ventura. So,
actually, that's a great segue. Gary, I wonder if you would just let people know, and if you show it, also put links in the chat about how people can subscribe to you, how people can follow you, and the Patreon, all of that stuff.
Okay, yeah. So this is my site, MacMost.com. And I publish videos Monday through Friday. So there's 5 new videos every week. You can see the latest one at the top, and you can see the most recent ones if you scroll down. You could search for videos on different topics. If you go to video tutorials here at the top, it breaks it into categories. So you can, if you're interested in iMovie videos, you can go and look for iMovie in here. The best way to follow what I do and get all the new stuff is click on newsletter here at the top, and you just enter your email address, and you get a newsletter every week that looks like this, that includes, the 5 videos that I published that week, and then any other, content and information and stuff like that. So that's just a free newsletter. It comes every week. It's just easier than, remembering that, I publish new videos every day, check every day. This way, every Thursday morning, you get, here are the 5 videos for the last week. You also can ask questions here. I have a Q&A forum that you can ask questions with. One of the things you'll notice here at the site is, it's different than every other Mac site you're going to look at. There are no ads. There's not a single advertisement here. So I don't accept advertising. Starting 5 years ago, I switched from having ads like all the other Mac sites have ads. I switched to using Patreon. So Patreon is a way where people can directly support MacMost. And basically 5 years ago, I did a challenge and I said, hey, if, this many people sign up to support MacMost, I'll remove the ads. And I hit that within 90 days. So that's when I removed all the ads from the site here. So you can actually view all these videos. There are no ads in them. When you view them here at the site, there are no ads on the pages and such. And the Patreon thing is that, basically people sign up to support MacMost at different levels. And, I also post extra content here. So I post 5 videos a week to MacMost and to the YouTube channel. It's the same videos at the YouTube channel, but I also post 1 or 2 new videos to just, the patrons. So it's just kind of a part of the thank you package of for the people that support, and anybody at this level or above gets those. And then there's also discounts on my courses. At a higher level, people actually get the courses for free. So that's—
Could you talk about the courses, please?
Yeah. So I have another site. It's courses.macmost.com. And then I have some courses here. Years ago, I did courses on Udemy, if people are familiar with that. But then I decided I didn't like how the direction Udemy was heading. So I created my own site just to sell my courses directly. And I have courses on here. Here's iMovie, Keynote, Numbers, Pages, Automator, Final Cut, Photos. There's a general course here at the top. It says macOS Monterey now, but Monday morning, that's going to change to the new course, which will be macOS Ventura. And that's your general basics, like how to use the Finder, how to use Safari, all of that. That's in that course there. And yeah, these courses are, you basically go in and they're large collections of videos. Like you can see, this is the table of contents for the Pages course. So each one of these is an individual tutorial there. So the main way that MacMost works now is, instead of advertisements at the site, it's Patreon from supporters. I've got about 1,400 people now that support MacMost directly like that. And then also courses. People can buy courses from me. The videos at the site are always free. When you go to this, these daily videos are free for everybody to see, and they're at YouTube as well. But Patreon, the courses, and YouTube, that's what MacMost basically is.
So I did want to ask, would you be willing to kind of donate or contribute to give one Pi member a course, so we could include that in our door prize for today's meeting?
Sure. The Ventura course comes out on Monday, so let's do that. Put a Ventura course purchase as a door prize. Sure.
Yeah. So afterward, you can let me know how to do that.
Just contact me with just contact me and I'll give you the information. They basically have to just create a courses account, but don't buy anything, and then I manually add the course to their account.
Well, would it help if I gave you someone's email address, or?
Well, I'd want them to set up the account themselves.
Okay.
But I mean, it's just, you just go in, sign up, new account, email address, password, done, and then you have an account, and then you tell me, oh, this is the person, and then I'll just add that course to their account.
Terrific. So maybe it's time for you to shut down your file sharing.
Yep.
And I wanted to share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to snail mail with you a handsome Pi mug in appreciation for your presentation to our Pi today.
Thanks. Yep.
So
I'll get you that information.
After the meeting, you can send me where this will actually go.
Yep, that sounds good.
Terrific. Pi members, any final questions for Gary? Gary, this has just been wonderful.
Oh, good.
I do have a last question.
Yeah.
And then, no, sorry, Van will end the meeting, but some other questions are coming up. Could you give us just a sense of what your productivity process is like to be able to generate 5 quality videos a week? That's bonkers.
It is. I agree. No, because I'm now past 2,800 videos in 15 years. You could find YouTube channels with millions of uploads, but they're not somebody like me producing the millions of uploads. They're like people stealing stuff and throwing stuff on the channel. I don't know of any other video creator that's just done 15 years, 5 videos a week, consistently like this. Productivity is a big deal for me. Like, I think about it all the time. I use an app called ScreenFlow to record my presentations. ScreenFlow lets me capture the screen and my camera and my microphone all at the same time and puts them in different tracks. And so I can, I don't spend too much time on production, because I've got these different things I have to merge together. I just start off with, my recording, and maybe I record like 20 to 30 minutes. And then I've got everything there in tracks and it's all lined up. And then I can just go through and edit out portions. I'll say something, and if it's not exactly as I think I should have said it, I'll just repeat it. or if I click on something and it doesn't do what I thought it was going to do, I'll repeat it. So I end up basically going through the videos and taking out all the pieces, editing out all the pieces till I get to the concise video that is exactly, what I want in there. And that I've just gotten that down to through practice, doing it every day, you just get really good at it. I also sometimes don't do things that are going to take too long. Like there'll be ideas I have for like, oh, I can make my videos better by doing this, but it's going to double my production time. So no, I just say no to things like that.
So do you use Final Cut? Do you use Final Cut Pro?
No, I do it all in ScreenFlow.
ScreenFlow allows you to edit videos.
Yeah, it records and edits. So everything I do is in ScreenFlow. I have used Final Cut Pro in the past, like years ago, and I had a process for that as well. But ScreenFlow is what I've been doing for like the last 6-7 years, I think. I've got everything set up. I've got a green screen behind me. Obviously, it's not like a floating red void. It's a green screen. I've got my camera set up on top of my Mac, the microphone, everything's ready to go all the time. I've got little switches here. I can turn on, lights. For recording, the reason I don't use them for presentations is they're bright and I can't do an hour plus with the lights in my eyes. I can do maybe 20-30 minutes, and then at the end I'm like, oh, turn these lights off, they're too much. I'm like ready to go, ready to hit the record button at any time. I don't write scripts. I just, from years and years of writing books and teaching this stuff and doing these videos, I kind of got down what I want to say. And as I said, if I say something and it's like, nah, that's not right, I'll do it again. And I just know I'm going to cut that part out. You
can stop there, Gary. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots. Yeah. I got it down, and I really work on productivity all the time. Like not a day goes by that I don't think about how could I have automated something, done something a little faster, maybe done something that's 90% as good, but half the time, all the time. So yeah, I've kind of become a little productivity expert in doing this.
Thanks. Let's go to Van and then Jack.
For some time now. And I think you need a 12-step program to wean yourself away from keyboard shortcuts. I have never run into anybody who is as focused on keyboard shortcuts as you are. What is that? Is that part of this productivity thing, or where did that come from? Because you can't go, you don't go 90 seconds without having a keyboard shortcut, because that just must be the way you think.
Actually, it's not mostly from me. I don't use as many keyboard shortcuts as I talk about. It's from other people. I get constant requests for keyboard shortcuts, how to do something with only the keyboard. And the feedback I get, like when I show keyboard shortcuts, people go nuts. They love it. So I've just learned it's a very popular subject, and if I show something and there's a shortcut and I don't mention the shortcut, I'm going to get asked about the shortcut. So I don't use it. I use the mouse a lot more than in my real life work than what you see in my videos. It's not, if you do something once in a day, keyboard shortcut's not going to save you any time. It's only if you're doing something like once every 5 minutes, then the keyboard shortcut's saving you time.
Thank you.
Jack?
Gary, will Ventura support Rosetta 2?
Yeah, it uses the same. It's unchanged.
Aaron, you're next.
Hey, Gary, great presentation. Thank you. Quick question about your videos. I don't know if this is something you're willing to share, but I was curious if ScreenFlow is what enables you to highlight the cursor in your videos, or if you use another third-party utility for that.
Yeah, no, it's done in ScreenFlow. It has great functionality for changing the cursor, enlarging the cursor, seeing when you click, and hiding the cursor, which is great because it's like a separate track. So if there's a section where I want to actually hide the cursor after recording, I could turn the cursor off, after the fact. So yeah, it's all ScreenFlow.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to offer the last chance for people to log into our Pi Attend sheet, and I'll do a door prize.
Jack has his hand up also.
Jack, another question or a persistent hand? The case of the
There we go.
persistent hand.
Persistent hand. I thought I took it down.
How do you log in?
Oh, I've sent the link a couple of times, but let me send it. Let me put it in the chat again. Oh, actually, Gary, this is kind of an iPad question, and I wonder if you use something for this. The one thing I realized, because I've long used a copy utility on the Mac for the clipboard, but it's frustrating when I'm trying to be productive on the iPad that I don't have multiple clipboard capability.
Yeah.
Is there an app that you use for that?
None that I use. I mean, I think sandboxing really kind of makes that almost impossible. But like, I don't think you can have a clipboard manager on an iPad or iPhone the same way that you can have it on the Mac.
I
Okay,
use a
thanks.
program. I use a program called Paste, and it syncs pretty effectively between iOS and Mac OS.
Does Paste like if you copied something on the iPad and then you copied something else on the iPad, is it remembering those? I suppose it
Yes.
might, because the Mac,
Yes.
because when you copy something on one, the Mac will see it, and then the Mac version of Paste will remember it. So it's kind of might be a neat workaround. It's using your Mac to see the clipboard rather than using your iPad. It's my guess.
I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty effective, and the clipboard items continue to show up on my iPhone, my iPad, my Mac.
Yeah, Paste is a good one.
Thanks, Dan.
Recently, there was a security issue on the pads and mobile devices of the clipboard being read by other apps. But Apple, I think, has got finally a handle on that. That if a other app tries to read your clipboard, it'll post a notice.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're using it, it will let it go through. So,
yeah.
Diana.
Yeah, until I watched this program, I don't mean Gary's program, but just the Zoom program, I did not know that there was now a new Apple keyboard, a Touch ID keyboard. I hadn't heard about that. Now, I don't even have an M1 computer yet, and I'm not using Monterey, but if I contemplated getting such a computer and that keyboard, as a person who is challenged with Touch ID not working for me, am I going to lose functionality on that keyboard? What would happen when Touch ID just doesn't work for me? When I use Wallet, I have a lot of trouble making a payment with Touch ID. I have to usually put my password in. So what am I going to lose with the new keyboard if I attempted to use one?
Well, I mean, if you don't have an M1 or M2 Mac, then the Touch ID isn't going to work at all from a new keyboard. So it will work the same as an old keyboard.
Okay.
But I mean, for using Apple Wallet, typically, if you try to use it on a Mac that doesn't have the security chip, then you're asked to confirm on your phone. So, you know, so if you don't have Touch ID on your Mac, but you purchase something online and you hit, use Apple Pay, then usually it says confirm on your phone, and then your phone, it pops up, it says confirm this purchase, and you have to use your phone to confirm. And that would be the same. I mean, it would only change if you would get a new Mac that was compatible with the Touch ID. Then you should be able to actually do that purchase on your Mac without bringing out your phone. Not that that's a big deal. I mean, most of us, you know, we don't do purchases often enough that it's not a huge problem to just take out your phone on the
Well,
occasion.
when I'm using my laptop, which is a Big Sur, it's the last Intel version of the laptop before the Monterey and M1 came out. I'd have that problem with Touch ID, and I have to put my password in usually when I'm working with something that requires Touch ID.
Oh, just
So
for not for Apple Pay. Yeah, for Touch ID, yeah, because there is no Touch ID, so you have to confirm with your password. I mean, and that's the way, I mean, that's the way I do it right now I have a new Mac Studio, you know, with everything's the latest. But my keyboard is just a regular, you know, I didn't get the Touch ID keyboard yet. I probably will eventually do it. You know, so I just enter my password.
Aside from those kinds of things that even, you know, my older computer laptop does, what does the new keyboard require for Touch ID?
It requires the M1 or M2 Mac.
No, I mean, like, if you're using it, is there anything else that happens? Anything else with the fingering on the keyboard that's affected by the Touch ID functionality?
No, the rest of the keyboard's just a normal keyboard.
It just, all right, fine. Then I will be reassured about that. I mean, this is, you know, an issue where, you know, you try to keep up with things, and yet there is a physical problem because of age, I guess. But Touch ID just doesn't work for me, and I've tried several different fingers.
Okay. I think Lawrence has his hand up.
Yeah, I had a comment about that. Kathleen is a former naval officer, and she's also a nurse, and she has no fingerprints at all. They tell her that she really should have been a cat burglar. So when Touch ID came out on the phones, it was useless for her, and she had just type in her passcode every time. When the Face ID came out, she insisted that I buy the phone in the middle of Apple's presentation because that was something she wanted. She will never have a Touch ID because I'll be constantly challenged for passwords to install something or do something dangerous. And for me, the Touch ID works very well. For Kathleen, it does not work at all. But as was just mentioned, you can use, sometimes your phone will act as a two-factor authenticator and it'll pop up on your phone. Or if you have a wristwatch, when I sit down to my computer, my wristwatch logs me in. I don't usually have to type in a password or use the Touch ID at all. My wristwatch takes care of that. So Apple has thought about this, and they're aware of the fact that for a lot of people, the Touch ID does not work. And they worked on other things, like when even the Face ID, when people started masking up, they started concentrating on looking at your eyes rather than the shape of your face. So if you're wearing a mask and you've set it up so that the Face ID works with your mask, you just stare at your phone and it says, oh, that's you. So Apple is aware of the issues, and this is considered an accessibility issue. So Apple's paid a lot of attention to this.
Yeah, I think my phone, I haven't had to type in the number code too much because I think it uses Face ID sometimes, at least, to wake up. I haven't noticed any logging in with my watch, and maybe there's something I should do to make that work more.
Yeah, that's a Mac thing where you could set your Mac to, instead of your password, if you're wearing your Apple Watch and that's unlocked, then it'll unlock your Mac. I've never had great success with that. Like, it works sometimes. So I tend to forget that feature even exists.
Okay, thanks.
No, that works for me all the time. That's fun. Yeah. It's funny how different.
And it's multiple Macs, and it's always been, it works until it doesn't. And then it doesn't work for a long time, and then it does for some reason, and then it doesn't again. It's like,
I wanted to announce that Jim Diamond is the winner of our door prize today. And so, Jim, I'll be in touch with you to be able to access one of Gary's great courses. And you can opt for his Ventura course or another one.
Terrific. Thank you, John. And thank you, Gary.
Sure.
Well, I think we're, if there aren't any other questions, Roy, do you have any final comments before we let Gary get back to his regular productivity?
No, I think it was a great presentation, and it's hopefully going to make people a lot more productive. So it was great. Very good things to learn, and we're all excited Monday to have Macs and iPads to get the newest versions and start using them, because there's a lot of good stuff. So
yep.
Thank you.
Gary,
Okay.
thank you very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to be on our Zoom meeting here with us today. It was an excellent presentation.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay. Thanks again, Gary. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was really something.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much a wrap almost. We can address some questions. There will not be a clubhouse next Saturday because it's the end of the month, but Ralph and Ann may put together a special meeting on next Saturday. So the next clubhouse will be on the first Saturday. And I think because of the holiday, we won't be having a third Saturday clubhouse because we'll be having our general meeting. So, but Learner's Sig will be coming up on second Thursday, and Ralph and Bruce will be having their two Wednesday and Thursday SIGs. The photo SIG will be coming up on sometime on the first part of next month also. So those are the active SIGs we've got.
I will host a SIG next Saturday as well as during the week.
There we go. So there'll be an open room for anybody that wants to come and chat about
Rump Clubhouse Saturday.
Yeah, actually,
Thank you, Ralph.
there probably should be a special meeting next Saturday, just so everybody can talk about the new operating systems. Be a good reason to go to the next Saturday one to talk about things. I'm starting to think about. We're going to have guests over, so I probably won't be available, but it should be a good Saturday meeting to talk about all those new updates. Remember to always back up your system before you're doing the update, but have fun with the new one. Check MacMost for classes or news about it. As Aaron has said, once Monday comes around, you can download the guides for free from Apple to find out more about how to use them for those that like to read a manual about how to use the new stuff. Ralph, go ahead.
Yes. Would you or someone post a link to what Jerry said about how to buy one of his courses? Because I am going to purchase the Ventura course. And I took a screenshot of it, but it's easier if somebody posts it in the chat.
I guess
I think it was courses at courses MacMost or something like that was the web address. I don't think it was the standard one.
I just pasted it in the chat, Ralph.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you. I just saved the chat.
And we will send a chat around.
Yep.
All right. Roy, I'm going to stop the YouTube.
Okay. Yep.
And let me, before I do that, just check to see no chat, no nothing.